It started with a sentence. 7 words that settled between us like a silent verdict. I don't want to be intimate with you. She said it calmly. Not with anger, not even with frustration. It was almost clinical, like she was reading a weather report. I remember the way she tucked her legs underneath her on the couch, the same spot where she used to curl into me during late-night movies. She didn't look away when she said it. That almost hurt more, that she could meet my eyes and not flinch. I didn't answer right away, just nodded like I understood. Maybe a part of me did. We'd been drifting, that much was clear. But I kept hoping we'd find our way back. That maybe, if I just held the line, kept showing up, kept giving, we'd remember who we were. Her name was Lena. We'd been married 6 years at that point. I met her at a charity gala in Atlanta. She was volunteering at the check-in table, wearing a black dress 2 sizes too big and a smile that didn't need adjusting. I was giving a speech that night on behalf of a nonprofit I'd helped fund. I noticed her watching me, not with awe, but with curiosity. I liked that. We started talking afterward, over lukewarm coffee and flickering lights in the parking lot. It was easy with her back then. Natural. She didn't care about my money. Or if she did, she didn't let on. We dated for a year, married within 2. She said she loved how grounded I was. I told her I admired her fire. But fire, I've learned, burns in more than one direction. The distance didn't come all at once. It crept in, first in the quiet, then in the eye rolls, then in the way her phone never left her side. The nights grew colder, not because of the weather, but because of the way she'd turn her back to me in bed. I didn't push. I thought space was something you gave someone when they were hurting. Turns out, sometimes space is what people create when they've already left. The day she told me she didn't want to be intimate, I made dinner. Salmon, asparagus, her favorite rose. I lit candles. She sat across from me, phone in hand, scrolling while I talked about my day. Then she looked up, sighed, and said it. I don't want to be intimate with you anymore. Not I'm tired. Not let's talk. Just that. Something inside me didn't even crack. It just shut off. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't plead. I think I asked if she was okay. She said she was. Just tired of pretending. That's how she phrased it. Pretending. I nodded again. The food went cold. We watched a movie in silence. She went to bed early. And that night, I lay awake in the guest room, trying to remember the last time she touched me like she meant it. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention. She'd always had expensive tastes, designer bags, weekly hair appointments, dinners with the girls. I never minded. I was raised to believe that when you love someone, you give freely. So I did. The house we lived in, bought it outright. Her car, leased under my company's name. Her business class vacations, I covered them all. But after that conversation, something inside me shifted. I stopped paying her credit card bills. At first, she didn't notice. A few days passed, then a week. Then the alerts started coming in. Email pings from Amex, late fee warnings, and one frantic phone call while I was in a meeting. Did you forget to pay the bill? No, I said. I didn't forget. Silence. Then a nervous laugh. Okay, well, can you do it tonight? I paused. Why don't you handle it this month? There was a long stretch of air between us. Are you serious? I am. She hung up without another word. That night, she cooked dinner. First time in weeks. Chicken and rice, something simple. She tried small talk. I kept it neutral. I didn't want revenge. I wanted honesty. By the second week, she started asking more questions. Are we okay? I don't know, I said. Are we? She didn't answer. I watched her unravel in small ways. She canceled a hair appointment, then brunch with her friends. She began walking around the house like a ghost in silk robes, her confidence shrinking with each overdraft notification. I didn't take joy in it. That's the strange part. I wasn't punishing her. I was just done giving to someone who no longer saw me as worth anything beyond my wallet. It was around then I found a folder in her office drawer. I shouldn't have looked, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside were printed emails, messages between her and a man named Zach. Flirty, not explicit, but emotional. Long messages about how she felt misunderstood, trapped, alone. Zach said all the right things, called her beautiful, said she deserved more. She never mentioned me by name, just called me him, like I was an idea, not a person. That night, I didn't confront her. I simply moved my accounts. Every joint account, closed. Every auto payment, canceled. I changed the passwords to my brokerage accounts, froze the cards tied to my business. Even separated the utilities, putting them in her name. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it to see what she'd do when the money stopped flowing. She confronted me 3 days later. "You're being cruel," she said, standing in the doorway of my home office. "No," I replied, calm as ever. "I'm being honest." She scoffed. "You're punishing me because I don't want to sleep with you." I looked her in the eye. "I'm not punishing you. I'm just done funding someone who doesn't see me as a partner." Her mouth opened, then shut. For the first time in months, she looked unsure of herself. "This is emotional manipulation," she said. "No," I said again. "This is clarity." The days that followed were quieter. She didn't cook. She didn't speak. She went out less. The dresses she used to wear around the house disappeared, replaced by sweats and silence. Then one night, she asked if we could talk. We sat on the porch. The air was cool, stars hanging low. "I think I made a mistake," she said. I waited. I thought I needed space. But maybe I needed connection. Maybe I pulled away because I didn't know how to say I felt lost. I nodded slowly. "And Zach?" She flinched. "You read that?" I did. She looked away. It was emotional, nothing physical. I believed her, and maybe that's why it still hurt. "You could have told me," I said, "about the distance, the loneliness." I would have listened. "I didn't think you'd care." That hurt more than anything else. "I always cared," I said softly. But I stopped trying when I realized I was the only one still showing up. That night, she didn't ask to stay in my room. She just said goodnight and went upstairs. I stayed outside for a long time, watching the moon rise, trying to figure out what part of me still wanted to make it work, and what part of me knew it was over. I don't know what comes next. Maybe counseling. Maybe lawyers. Maybe just a long silence that stretches into something like peace. But I do know this. I will never again mistake giving for loving, or silence for safety, or a pretty smile for the truth. Because when someone tells you they don't want you, in any way, you have to believe them, even if it breaks your heart to listen. A week passed. She didn't leave, but she didn't reach for me either. We lived like strangers in the same house, two souls orbiting each other, careful not to collide. She cooked a few times, asked about my day once or twice, even tried wearing that old blue sundress I once said made her glow. But her eyes never matched her efforts. They were tired and unsure, just like mine. I had this journal I used to write in during our first year of marriage. I found it in the back of a drawer one morning, behind some old receipts and a broken watch. I flipped it open and read pages of a younger me, full of hope, eager to love her fully. One entry stuck with me. Today she danced in the kitchen barefoot while I burned the toast. I'd burn 10 more breakfasts just to keep this feeling alive. I closed the journal and set it aside. That guy? He'd given everything. Maybe too much. 2 weeks later, she suggested therapy. "I know we're not okay," she said, "but I want to try." And for a moment, I felt that old flicker again, the one that used to show up when we dreamed about building a life together. So I agreed. We sat in a small office with a woman named Diane, who had soft eyes and a firmer voice than you'd expect. She asked simple questions that felt like scalpels. "When did you start feeling disconnected?" I answered first. "Around the time I stopped feeling seen." Lena looked at me, visibly surprised. "I thought you were pulling away," she said. "Always working. Always tired." "I was working to keep the lights on," I said. "Working to keep us afloat. And I was tired because I felt alone." She nodded, quietly. Her eyes filled but didn't spill. That meant something. Over the next few sessions, we started peeling things back. She admitted that part of her withdrew because she felt like she was just arm candy, that her world was shrinking into mine and not the other way around, that the money gave her comfort, but also a sense of dependence that made her resent herself and me. "I didn't know how to be equal in a world you built," she whispered once. That struck me, because it wasn't an excuse. It was an admission, a real one. I admitted my own failings too, the way I let money replace emotional effort, that I bought silence instead of inviting conversation, that sometimes I confused providing with loving, and then resented her for not knowing the difference. It was messy, honest. Some sessions ended with more silence than solutions. But we kept showing up, and for the first time in months, I felt like we were both trying. Then, one evening, as we were cleaning up after dinner, she touched my arm. Not by accident, not out of habit, just softly, deliberately. "I miss you," she said. And I realized I'd missed her too. Not the version who posed for vacation photos, and scrolled through social media during dinner. But the one who used to hum while folding laundry, who kissed me behind the fridge door just because. The one who once believed in us before everything got complicated. We sat on the couch, no TV, no phones, just her head on my shoulder. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Of what?" "That you've already let go." I paused, then told her the truth. "I'm still holding on, but with one hand now." She nodded. "Then I'll grab the other." And in that moment, I believed her. But rebuilding is harder than starting. Because now, everything matters. Trust is fragile when it's been dropped. We started budgeting together, no more blind spending. She offered to get a job again, even went to a few interviews. I sold the second car, more out of principle than necessity. I wanted us to choose simplicity this time, to relearn the art of needing less. Intimacy didn't rush back in like a flood. It came gently, slowly, a kiss on the forehead, a longer hug at the sink, her hand lingering on mine during walks. One night, she whispered, "Can I come back to your bed?" I didn't answer right away. I looked at her face, searching for sincerity, not desperation. "Yes," I said, "but only if you mean it." "I do." And for the first time in months, we lay together without tension, just quiet warmth. Some days, I still think about what would have happened if I hadn't stopped the money. If I'd kept feeding the cycle, hoping she'd find her way back through comfort alone. Maybe she would have stayed, but not returned. Not really. Sometimes, love needs boundaries. Not walls, but gates. Doors with locks and keys earned, not assumed. She never apologized directly for that sentence. "I don't want to be intimate with you." But her actions became apologies. The dinners, the therapy, the job applications, the nights spent talking about nothing and everything again. And I didn't demand a confession. I just watched. Because love, once broken, doesn't need dramatic speeches to heal. It needs quiet repairs. Patience. A willingness to meet in the middle, barefoot and honest, with all the lights turned on. We're still figuring it out. Some days are heavy. Others feel like year one again. But now, when I look at her, I see someone who fought her way back to me. Not for comfort, not for cash, but for connection. And when she looks at me, I think she finally sees the man behind the bank account. Not a provider, not a placeholder, but her partner. And that's worth more than anything I ever paid for.